Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Dr. Shealy, are you blissed?
You bet.
How's Dr. Shealy today?
He is good.
Mm-hmm.
How's Vince?
How about up and at 'em?
You bet.
As my dad and you would say, up and at 'em. You know, I was walking down the hall to the studio today, and first thing that came to my mind was you saying up and at 'em. And, brings back memories, fond memories of my father waking me up in the morning. Up and at 'em, Vinny, up and at 'em. And, yeah. You know, Dr. Shealy, I've been telling my boys over and over, and I think they think I have some kind of dementia, because I've been telling them over and over about this term that you have used, and I think it is so appropriate in so many instances. And that term that you used on the air with us was cash karma. And, you know, it is so appropriate in so many ways. Like, why wait? Why wait for for karma? Let's do it. Let's do it now.
Yes. That came from a dear friend of mine who wrote a book about past lives based on the Casey material. But she created the term cash karma, which means you don't have to wait for another life to get it.
And I think cash karma is so appropriate in many instances when people do bad things to us. Dr. Shealy, you know, I was also thinking about you know, how you've mentored me over the years, and our travels to the studio in Springfield, the radio studio. And I was thinking about that, and I was connecting a dot. The last time I was in Springfield was just a few days ago. I'm talking about Springfield, Missouri class. And there's a phenomenon that has been accelerating, and that is the number of entrepreneurs who have set up shop on the street corners by the traffic lights. And their wares that they're selling is pity. What they're saying is, help me, I'm a single father. I need to feed my two girls. I'm a single parent. I need money. And the occurrence of this, you know, used to be infrequent. Now it's on more and more intersections in the Springfield, in the city of Springfield, Missouri. And, you know, I thought, okay, I think maybe things are getting worse. Jobs are getting harder to find. And I've noticed a common thread, and that the people who are homeless do not look quite as desperate as they did years ago. They don't look unkempt. They don't look unshaven. They don't look greasy. They don't look starving. And the new phenomena that I've seen is the addiction to their cell phones. So in between, you know.
Oh, well, you have to get donations so they can keep their cell phones. You don't want to lose their favorite thing.
That's exactly it. So it looked like I was catching flies, and my mouth was open as I was passing this guy on the street corner. He's on the cell phone. He's pacing. He's obviously talking to somebody, and it was not one of those disposable or semi-disposable cell phones. It looked like a full-size smartphone. So we're talking minimum, without tax, $40 a month. Minimum. So $40 plus tax. If it's postpaid or prepaid. If it's postpaid, it'd be, a lot more taxes than prepaid. But we're talking probably at least $50 a month to support the cell phone. And then I was thinking about, how does this work? How is this guy able to stand there and in between donations, get on a cell phone and track whatever he's tracking or talk to whomever he's talking to, or maybe his wife's on the other street corner, or his girlfriend, or whoever it may be, and maybe they're comparing notes and which location has the best activity. But the point is, we've got this addiction, and even people who are allegedly or appear to be begging for money are addicted or find the need for a cell phone. Now, I was passing him, and I don't have a cell phone. So, but he's asking everybody who goes by for money, and I guess the point is, we've always had a problem with homelessness. We've always had a problem with unemployment. As long as people have been around, I guess, and as long as jobs have been around, people have, some people are at the bottom, and some people are at the top. But the cell phone seems to be. I was quite shocked by seeing a panhandler or a beggar, whatever you want to call that person, using a cell phone. It obviously is the wrong message for me, because if that person can afford $50 or $40 for a cell phone, that money would be better spent on food. Don't ask me for money and have a cell phone. Don't do it. Don't ask me for money if you smoke. Right? Don't ask me for money. Don't ask me for money if you like to go and consume a lot of alcohol. There was Dr. Shealy used to be a guy who came to the meetups, and he appeared to be always broke, and he would sit there and he'd order dinner, and I knew he couldn't afford it. I knew it, and so I would just go to the cashier and I say, there's a guy over there at table 17, or I would describe this guy, and I wouldn't point to him. I would just say, there's a guy, and he's wearing a red jacket or whatever it was. And I'd say, I'd like to pay for his dinner. Until one day, I saw that he ordered 2 mixed drinks. And that was the day that I didn't go up to the cashier and say, or the waitress, and say, I'd like to pay for his dinner. That's when it ended, right then and there. Because I refused, I refused to pay for things for other people that I wouldn't pay for myself. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, Vince, I love you. you and I are like twins when it comes to these kinds of beliefs.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things that Dr. Shealy, that we do here on this broadcast is we talk about our personal experiences. We talk about our values. We talk about things that have happened to us, and we share them. I think we share them more than most broadcasters would, and more than most people on the radio would. And because we think they're important, and we think that other people might want to think about some of the things, some of the conclusions that we've come to over our lives. And one of the things that, while we're on this topic, Dr. Shealy, I have been to many retail outlets, and sometimes they'll say to me, would you like to donate to, and it'll be some national thing. And the first words out of my mouth are, no. And, for some people, it might be embarrassing to say that, no, I'm not going to contribute to whatever it is. The American Cancer Society, the Red Cross, whatever. I'm not going to do it. And I don't say it, no, I'd rather not. I say, no, I'm not. I don't contribute to organized charities. However, I do help people individually. So if someone needs help, and I know exactly where, whatever I'm going to provide, whatever that gift is, if I know exactly where it's going, if I know 100% of that gift goes to where I think it's going, yeah, I'm interested. But in terms of giving money where 11% of it goes where I think it's going, and 89% of it goes to jet fares and junkets and prostitutes and whatever else, I'm not interested. Do you have any thoughts on that, Dr. Shealy? How do you handle that?
Well, I'm with you. I am a big believer in donating to a charity of my choice.
Yes. And by the way, you have. I hope this is okay with you, Dr. Shealy, but I was at the radio station one day several years ago, and our engineer, Gary Williams, said to me, hey, we've been invited to go to lunch. I said, well, great. Where's that? They said, well, the university is going to honor Dr. Shealy. Let's go. And, we've got just enough time to get there. And so we ended the broadcast and we raced over there. And you were honored because of your philanthropic presence, donation, and support for the university in a very, 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 I can't say enough, very large way. As a matter of fact, you wanted to make sure that the university had enough wherewithal to study conscientiousness, correct?
You bet.
And agriculture. May I say what you did, or would you rather I didn't?
Well, of course. No. I'm very pleased with what I did.
Okay, class. Dr. Shealy has a magnificent farm. I mean, magnificent in every respect. The grass, the fertility, the appearance, the outbuildings, the buildings. I mean, magnificent in every respect. And he donated his farm. Let me say it a different way. He donated his farm, the entire farm, to the University of Missouri, so that it would be a location for future study of conscientiousness and agriculture. Tell me anyone else who's done that. And he's never said it on the air. I was there. I I didn't know it was going to happen, Dr. Shealy. No one at the radio station said, "Did you hear the news?" It was when I showed up for my broadcast. That's when Gary Williams said, "There's a lunch honoring Dr. Shealy," and I didn't know why. I didn't know exactly what the honor was, but I knew that you had been on the radio and involved with the city of Springfield and the village, the whole area, for decades, and you're a legend. But I did not know that you had given your entire farm, a magnificent farm, a farm to be envied in every respect, including.
You know that I also endowed a chair of conscientious psychology, and I'm equally pleased with that.
Yes.
That the chair of that, Dr. Amber Abernathy, is just a wonderful ball of fire and energy. She has something like 17 or 18 research projects going on at this moment. She outdoes anything I could ever get organized altogether.
That's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And can you tell us a little more specifically what the outcomes you might anticipate would be as a result of endowing that conscientious psychology chair? We'll be right back. Dr. Norman Shealy is with us. Dr. Shealy is Surgeon of the Year, brain surgeon, author of many books, medical doctor. The list goes on and on and on. Farmer and my dear, dear friend, Dr. Norm Shealy. NormShealy.com. We'll be right back. Past Dr. Norman Shealy is with us, medical doctor, and we're talking about conscientious psychology. And conscientiousness is a trait that many here have at USA Prepares. All of our instructors, I believe, are quite conscientious, careful, vigilant, want to do a task well. People who are organized to a great extent compared to disorganized. Dr. Shealy, what do you expect the results to be as supporting this chair at the University of
my impression
Psychology?
Is that the country as a whole has become remarkably non-conscientious, that is, disorganized and, not self-sufficient, if you will, responsible for yourself. And so the reason for this is to develop tools that may appeal to the unweaned, if you will, in order to help them become conscientious and recognize that being responsible and organized and productive is fun. It is exhilarating. It is reinventing yourself, so to speak. And so she is already demonstrating, that certain simple tools that people can do can actually make them more conscientious.
Very interesting that you've mentioned this, Dr. Shealy. I'll tell you why. As I go through our lives here at the farm, I've said things to Mrs. Finelli and our children, things that absolutely positively could not happen. One, I'd say, so if we won the lottery, how would that change our lives? And the answer is it wouldn't. It would not change our lives in the least. And it could not happen because, well, we don't play the lottery. We understand how that works. And And it's gambling. Not that I'm absolutely adverse to gambling. I don't gamble by choice, but I certainly wouldn't gamble on the lottery with the state involved. And it's a game that it's very difficult to win. So I'm not interested in playing that game. But our lives here at the farm are one of work, 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 and that's all there is. Just work. But it's also vacation, 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 because the work we do is the work we choose to do because we like doing that work. Just going out on an island and watching the waves is something that I don't think I could stand it. I literally don't think I could be happy just watching the waves come in or watching cars go by, sitting on the front porch. It's something that I would think for me would be a time not well spent. I enjoy doing things. I enjoy making things, designing things, prototyping things. I enjoy the hard work and seeing the results of the hard work. So to me, it's exactly what you said. It's fun, it's exhilarating, it's reinvigorating, and my life is like that all the time. And I can't imagine it being anything less than that because I want to be involved. But not everybody is, Dr. Shealy, and I don't understand.
I totally agree. And interestingly, yesterday, even though I only had a couple of hours of work planned with patients, I spent the whole day here at the clinic. And interestingly, I'm much more productive on my computer sitting here in the office than I am at home.
Okay, and what do you attribute that to?
Well, there's so many distractions at home, I mean, there's things, you think of things in the house that aren't really essential, but you get distracted. At least I get somewhat more distracted. So I've made a decision that I'm going to, even though I'm still in a somewhat recovery phase in relation to my recent surgery, I'm going to spend at least 80 or 90% of every day right here at the clinic to get more done. And that's fine.
And absolutely. And by the way, you have a wonderful team. Your team there at the clinic is a lot of fun. They're bubbly. Michelle is just wonderful. I mean, everybody there is wonderful. I don't see any sourpusses in your environment.
Well, they would not last long.
So, Dr. Shealy, I bought something. I bought a tool on the internet, and I just checked the latest price. $3.96 on eBay, and it's a total dissolved solids meter. And it's a little electronic gadget. It's about the size of 4 dominoes stuck end to end to end, and it has a little cap on it and a little clip you can put in your shirt pocket. And you can detect the number of dissolved solids in water if you want. And so I just wanted to share that with the class that I bought one. We'll be right back. Class, Dr. Norman Shealy is with us, normshealy.com, and if you'd like to sign up for the same newsletter that I get multiple times per week, just go to normshealy.com, normshealy.com, and you can sign up for that same newsletter. No salesman will call. That list doesn't go anywhere. It's just used to get you your free electronic newsletter. Dr. Shealy, so what I did was I bought this total dissolved solids meter. It's a handheld meter, and you just insert it in water, and it will give a display that says parts per million of total dissolved solids, which are the amount of mobile charged ions, including minerals and salts and metals, dissolved in a given volume of water, and it's expressed in parts per million. And so during the break, I went to the faucet and I got a clean cup, and I ran for a few seconds water through the faucet to rinse the whatever water was in the metal faucet out, and I obtained a reading of 140 parts per million of total dissolved solids in cold water. I thought, let's look at the hot water. So I flushed the faucet, 241 parts per million in the hot water. Now, I expected that. And the reason I expected that is we have an anode in our hot water heater that would be consumed as the water is heated in the hot water heater. So I would expect more parts per million. Now, do I know exactly that that's the case? No, I don't. However, I do know for sure that there are 140 parts per million in the cold water, according to this meter, and 241 parts per million in the hot water. Now, we've all been told, when you make coffee, don't start with hot water. When you're boiling a pot of water to cook in, don't start with hot water. And so now I'm telling our class that I have proven that the hot water has more total dissolved solids in it than the cold water. I've absolutely proved it in our case. Now, distilled water should be darn close to 0 parts per million in terms of total dissolved solids. Dr. Shealy, do you have any thoughts about total dissolved solids? Is this worth knowing for families? Is it worth the $4 or less to get this device from China?
I don't care what the anode is made of, it's not food.
Yes. And at best case, it could be magnesium. If you decide that if you look at your hot water heater, and whether it be a gas-fired hot water heater or an electric-fired hot water heater, if you look at the top of it, you'll see probably a plug about an inch in diameter, maybe a little bit larger. And if you remove that plastic plug, below the insulation, now whether you have fiberglass or foam insulation, it'll be below that, you'll see a hex-headed fitting. If it has a dome on it in the center of that fitting, if it's domed like a bump the size of a lima bean, that would mean that it is, let's see, the domed one is, I'm going to verify this. I believe that's the magnesium one. The one that is not would be the aluminum one. And I'll verify that, and I'll make sure that I'll tell you that in the broadcast a little bit later. But if you have the aluminum one, you are poisoning yourself with aluminum. Would you agree with that, Dr. Shealy? Because of the consumption of it? Yeah.
Remember, also, got to put this in, if you live in a city, you're poisoning yourself every time you open the tap.
Yes.
Unless you do something to filter out the fluoride, the chlorine, and God knows what else.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So you may want to take that out. Now, it's not easy. You'll need a huge wrench. A breaker bar maybe 18 inches long with a half-inch socket minimum, and you'll need to drain part of the hot water heater. You'll need someone to hold the hot water heater from moving while another person wrenches it. It's not easy. It really is not easy to get them out. But these aluminum anodes are sacrificial anodes, and they are designed to dissolve in water, the same water that you would be drinking, the same water that would indicate that you have more total dissolved solids in your hot water. So that anode rod, that metal rod, which is maybe 44 inches long, gets consumed in about, less than 3 years typically. So if you drank all the water out of your hot water heater, you would have eaten that rod. If you bathe in it and drink the water, you've either been bathing in it or drinking that rod. If you cook with it, you've been eating that rod. At the minimum, you've been applying the aluminum, if you have an aluminum anode rod, on your skin. And that aluminum is absorbed through your skin. Isn't it, Dr. Shealy?
You bet.
Mm-hmm. And
it's like that horrible stuff called deodorants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Antiperspirants. And who has not heard of someone in his or her family or a neighbor or a relative who doesn't have dementia? Who has heard of who has not heard of that? We all have heard of it. And if you go into clinics, hospital clinics or doctors' clinics, you'll see the senior citizen sitting there with their head down. They're sitting there. They haven't fallen over yet, but they're sitting there, head down, absolutely zoned out, almost in like a near coma state, upright, sitting down, head down, absolutely oblivious to almost everything around them.
Even if it doesn't bother the patient, and nobody could tell you that, it's got to be horrendous for the family.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Dr. Shealy, are there... I think this is the new plague. Maybe plague isn't the right word. But I believe that this dementia, the Alzheimer's type symptoms that we are seeing all around us, is a burden on everybody. the person who has it. I've seen, Dr. Shealy, I have seen in my relatives a woman who was a senior citizen who got Alzheimer's, dementia, and she was a bright, energetic worker. I mean, you know, in the prime, she was in the lead position at a factory. She would teach other people how to do things. She was well respected in a role that she mentored so many people and helped them with their lives. And as she got older, she became a little more forgetful. And some of the things that she forgot how to do were like how to eat. Her appetite changed. She didn't want to eat. Lost weight. Ultimately forgot how to chew. Ultimately forgot how to do everything. It was about as sad as could be. She lost her mind. She literally lost her mind. And I remember the great days where I had, you know, wonderful respect for this woman and did to her dying day. But it was so sad to watch the slow progression of dementia and Alzheimer's. It's a curse. It's a curse on everyone around. And literally, what did it take? Her daughter was a nurse. Her daughter, full-time job for 10 years, literally 10 years, was the care and feeding of her mother. It was her turn. It was her turn to, I hate to say it this way, return the favor, pay back, you know, all the nurture that her mother provided the daughter. And now it's the daughter taking care of her mother. It's her duty. It's her responsibility. And she did it without saying, woe is me. Without saying, this is 10 years of my life that I've given up. 10 years that, you know, I haven't been able to do anything. I'm chained to the house. Just did it because it was the right thing to do. And it was the right thing to do. But it's very sad, and it's a huge burden on everyone around, exactly as you said. Dr. Shealy, is there an answer?
Well, the answer is to prevent it as much as possible. And I believe that the prevention comes from, first of all, avoiding junk food. Mm-hmm. Let's face it, conservatively, 80% of everything sold in the grocery store, and especially at most restaurants, is junk. That mm-hmm. means it's dangerous to your health in general and to your mind in particular. Mm-hmm. Secondly, there is pollution generalized over the whole earth. And third, there are other day-to-day poisons that get into our system. And so the big thing to me is because of the high deficiency in the food available to us, unless you grow 100% of your own food, everyone should be taking supplements. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now,
and we do. We do at the farm. And we do at the farm. But Dr. Shealy, I've got to tell you that there are posts on the internet. There are people purporting to be medical doctors who are saying supplements, that's just, you know what you get out of supplements? Expensive urine. You know, I can't believe it.
Those doctors are beyond stupid. They're ignorant. Mm-hmm. Stupid means you don't know. Ignorant mm-hmm. means you're ignoring fact. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And fact is, there is absolutely outstanding evidence that certain nutrients are essential for your brain, and you can't get them out of the grocery store. And so, you know, to me, every single adult, we're talking about 40 and above, should be on a minimum of the Chiani triangle. That's just the beginning. In addition, today, for the average person, I think you do well take a significant increased amount of vitamin C, a very significant increase in astaxanthin. I mean, those are the basics. So the triangle and my youth formula, for instance, and some astaxanthin, to me, are absolute minimum for everybody. Now, the other thing you have to be careful about is the fetish that some people get into with not wanting to eat meat, which I consider a true serious psychological fetish. I saw this week, Monday, a young woman who was a vegan for 10 years. And I believe she is more deficient in all the essential nutrients than anyone I've ever met.
Let's talk about that when we come back. Dr. Norm Shealy is with us, medical doctor. Class, very quickly, yes, the magnesium anode rod is the one with the bump in the hex head. So if you put your finger down there and you feel at the top of your hot water heater below that plastic plug, you feel a little bump the size of a half of a lima bean sliced diagonal, cut in half. Just a raised bump. That would be the magnesium one. The one without the bump would be the aluminum one. The aluminum one is the one you do not want. And yes, you can remove them, and there are videos on YouTube on how to do that. What I did was I went to Menards and I purchased a bunch of them. They were $19.99 plus tax each. They're 44 inches long, and they're 0.7 of an inch in diameter. So it's just a rod. It looks like a cane rod. And I bought them as gifts, and I've given them to friends and family to make sure that they have them. So for $20 roughly plus tax, you can go through the exercise of replacing your aluminum anode rod, your hot water heater, with magnesium, and then you can be bathing with magnesium, which Dr. Shealy has previously said is beneficial for our health, right, Dr. Shealy?
You absolutely. Magnesium is better absorbed actually through the skin than it is through the mouth, and that's an interesting side effect, beneficial side effect.
Okay, we got the call board lit up here. Werner Bach calling from New Brunswick, Canada. Welcome. You're on with Dr. Norman Shealy. Do you have some questions about health?
Yeah, good morning, Vincent, and good morning, Dr. Shealy.
Hey, what's up?
Yeah, well, the battle is still ongoing, and I wished I could farm the way I intended to farm here in New Brunswick. But as I say, the agenda here is different. They are pushing the GMO farmers, the big dairy farms, and the other farmers, unless they got a lot of money to burn and put into the pockets of the local chamber of commerce and all the businesses, they don't want you around there. And they use any dirty trick in the book that's available. But I want to say something about this. It just came to me about the rapid increase of Alzheimer's disease. Could it be that the brain has been damaged by different agents, and the body does not have the ability anymore to expel aluminum, excess levels of aluminum?
That's an interesting question of whether, there's a pro, if you will, versus con aluminum in the system normally. Not that we know of, but we do know aluminum is poison and toxic.
Yeah,
and unfortunately, even when I was growing up, aluminum pots and frying pans were common, and of course the so-called antiperspirants were common, and that so-called stone that they sell at health food stores is as bad as GMOs because that stone is aluminum. So aluminum is totally toxic to the brain, and maybe there's some genetically or otherwise some people who have a stronger resistance to it than others, but it's all poison.
Dr. Shealy, what gave me the idea when I was investigating the death of the animals, the small calves and so on, one thing I always looked for when I was coming in the morning out in the barn, I would touch the little calf's nose. And when the nose was ice cold, I opened their mouth, and inside the mouth it was all white, and the gums were white. And when they passed away about 2 days later or so, or a day later, when I did the autopsies, there were portions, the lungs, they were completely white. And my question is, basically the tissue went into shock. And what body tissue is more vulnerable to injuries and to dying off by lack of blood supply?
Right.
It is the brain.
And the brain gets 20% of the total output from your heart. So,
basically, when the brain tissue is temporarily deprived of proper blood and oxygen supply, there will be brain damage.
No question.
And this is accumulative. I had an experience there about a little bit over half a year ago.
Hold that thought. We're going into a break. We'll be right back. Everyone all set, cocked, locked. Hour number 2 of USAPrepares.com. Dr. Norman Shealy is with us. And Kyle's engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. Thank you so much, Kyle, for being side by side with us. Werner Bach has joined us live from New Brunswick, Canada. And Werner, please continue your discussion about, you're talking about the brain, blood supply, lack of blood supply, Alzheimer's, dementia, and you're concerned about the inability of our body to possibly not be able to remove aluminum toxins. Please continue with your thoughts.
What I have observed when I did the autopsies on those animals was that I didn't see any sign of aluminum, but what caused this massive damage to the body, to the brain, to the heart, and to the lungs. It was modified atmospheric nitrogen, which was being modified with directed energy, where the nitrogen was being oxidized into nitrogen oxide, nitrogen dioxide, and nitrogen trioxide. And this has an accumulating effect on brain tissue, on the heart, onset of heart disease, and onset of lung disease, which ultimately, steady irritation ultimately culminates in lung cancer. 4 of my neighbors here on a sparsely populated rural road within a mile and a half, they died of lung cancer. And 2 of all in their early and mid-50s, and 2 of them happened to be non-smokers. And when I went to the medical center and I saw some pictures there about the dangers of smoking, and it showed what was supposed to be the lung of a heavy smoker. It was a deep, dark red, and beside a healthy lung. And this is exactly what I saw at some of the animals when I did the autopsies afterwards, that had been exposed to this dangerous modified atmospheric air. And I said to the doctor, I can vouch for, in this case, 1 of a litter of 2 pups I found in the morning, dead in the yard. And I did not want to do the autopsies, but I had to find out what was killing the animals to stop this carnage. And the pup that survived until the next day, the lungs looked exactly as it was depicted in the medical center in the picture about what was supposed to be the lung of a heavy smoker.
Werner, are you saying that as a farmer, that you're surrounded by life and death all the time with animals, just as we are here on our farm?
Yeah, and more than usual. And as I say, over a period of 20 years, over 330 cows and calves have been brutally murdered in this kind of a way. And I was basically being bullshitted by the veterinarian. And when I finally confronted the district veterinarian and laid him out the facts, he said, we are not trained on it. And this district veterinarian, when I was falsely being dragged into court upon false accusation, I subpoenaed him to appear in court, and a judge disallowed him. But immediately afterwards, he went into retirement, even though he was at retirement age.
Werner, are you saying that these animals that you've witnessed the deaths of and that you've done the autopsies on are the canaries in the coal mine that are telling you that things are wrong, that these are warning signs? This
is going on all over the place, and when I look about the demise of of the bird population and the insect population. The bees are dying, and the wild bees and wasps and everything. I've seen over the last 40-some years such a decline of the population of all those species around here.
You know, Werner, you're talking about birds and you're talking about bees. First thing that came to my mind is, what birds? What birds? I haven't seen any. I haven't seen any birds. Just this one darn woodpecker. Other than that, we hardly have any birds here. Bees, we don't have any bees here. And those darn flies that we used to curse, like flies were everywhere. We don't have any flies. No flies this year. What's going on?
See, I was amazed when I came from the old country the first 2 years about the many varieties and the numbers of birds, songbirds, and of different type of insects, from hornets to wasps to wild bees and everything. And if we got a lot of them, we got maybe 2 or 3% left.
Right. I agree. And we used to, we used to be serenaded at night by the bugs. I mean, you could hear like a concert of bugs, all kinds of bugs chirping and chipping and talking to each other. Not anymore. Hardly hear any bugs now. No flies, hardly any birds, no bees. Well, actually, we have a couple wasps. Other than a couple, I mean like a couple, maybe a handful of wasps. Other than that, no bees, no bumblebees, no wood-boring bees, no birds, hardly any squirrels. You're right. You're absolutely right. Where did they go? But they're not here. They're not on our farm.
And as I say, for example, the bees, they got a rapid metabolism. I understand the working bee has basically a working life of about 4 to 5 weeks, and they have a rapid metabolism, and when there are those high levels of dangerous nitrogen oxides and high levels of ozone, this is all modified atmospheric air with directed energy. When they are they are the first ones to die.
Dr. Shealy, your thoughts?
Well, it's not aluminum, although there might be some of that too, but it's primarily Roundup and similar poisons.
And this is basically what here in the maritime provinces, the Department of Agriculture and the government agencies are pushing the GMO-type farming. Basically, not anymore the organic farming. And if you are not, if you don't prescribe to their vision of agriculture, they want you out of the picture by hook and by crook. The last few days, I have been out in the fields, and fields that I had limed 3 times and that had lots of manure on. It is the poorest fields I've ever encountered. And it is impossible that from one year to the next, suddenly a field that has been limed 3 times, where the pH is well within the 7 range, 0.7 range, that the whole field is just covered with wild strawberries that are an indicator of high acidity in the ground.
So, Werner, let me see if I've got this right. 3 applications of lime, your pH should be close to 7, which is neutral. The species that are growing are wild strawberries, indicating that your pH is wrong, and you have not been able to correct it with 3 applications of lime. Is that right?
No. With these 3 applications of lime, one field, when I planted their winter wheat there years back, I got a soil test done because I wanted to cover all the bases, not to give those idiots in the Department of Agriculture any more reasons, to blame things on.
Right.
And I put another 1.5 ton of lime per acre with magnesium, because the soil was low in magnesium, and it brought the pH up in this field that now grows wild strawberries, and the grass doesn't grow anymore. The clover plants, there are no more clovers in the field, but at the time when the soil test was done, it was 0.76. It was already in the alkaline, and that the soil loses its it's a pH within a few years to that level, there's so much monkey business, so much line and cover-up by the government. And thanks to the experts in the Department of Agriculture, what I can say about New Brunswick, a region that at one time was self-sufficient in food production, they are now importing 90% of the food.
Mm-hmm.
With all the expertise here in New Brunswick, we are producing food for roughly about 70,000 people on an area, the same area as New Brunswick, over in the old country where I come from, in the same area, we were producing food for over 15 million people. We don't need those experts. When the farmers were farming the traditional way, the sustainable way, and crop rotation and everything, they were able to feed the people of the region. And it's the same situation even worse in Nova Scotia, and the same situation in the New England states. I've been in contact with politicians in New England, and I was being told by one state representative in Maine that they are in the same situation where they import 90% of the food at the time when they were exporting food down the eastern seaboard.
Well, there's no question about it that in our neck of the woods, in our area of Missouri, that the sustainable type farmers are complaining that the same good old boy network, the large farmers, the wealthy farmers, seem to be getting all of the sweet deals from the government, all of the subsidies, and the little guys who are struggling just to hang on to their farms are not getting a fair shake. They don't get the information in advance like the good old boy network does.
Not
they don't know.
Only that, Vincent. It is not just only that. The big farms have been getting the grants, and they were hidden away under payments to vendors in order to deceive the public. And then mainstream media was saying, how much longer can we support the small, inefficient farm when the big farms they're getting?
Werner, we'll have to have you call back at another time. Thank you so much. Our call screen's lit up. That was Werner Bach. Class, thank you so much for being with us today. And Maria in Michigan, thank you so much for being so patient on hold. Welcome to USA Prepares with Dr. Norman Shealy.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Dr. Shealy.
Good morning. What's up?
So I have a question. I read some of the books, and I'm following you. So I was wondering if you have any recommendations for place, because I'm in Michigan, for past life regression that, we have the effects we want.
If there's anyone who's approved, it would be on my website.
Oh.
I only can approve people that have been certified by Dr. Morris Netherton, and all of those that have been are actually, if you look on resources on my website, you'll find whether there's one there.
Great. And would it be possible to talk a little bit about the healing results we would see from the past life regression?
Well, my personal belief from having experienced 30 of my own past lives over the last 40-some-odd years is that in general, if we have a major problem in this life, it relates to what I call unfinished business from a previous life.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes we go out of a life with anger, guilt, anxiety, or depression over something. And if we didn't solve it in that life, we're going to have it come up again.
Yes. Yes.
Dr. Shealy, do we know that?
I'm sorry?
Maria, you may want to hear this. Dr. Shealy, do we know that we have, that we're carrying these concerns or anger or guilt from a previous life in this life? Do we know that?
No.
Do we know that it's from a... Okay.
No. I think it's hidden, if you will. Quickly, I guess I could say my greatest karmic debt this life was in 1996 when some jerk from Canada came down and jerked my neck and dislocated my spine. Now, I knew when it happened, it had to be karmic. People don't do that unless you've got a karmic debt. And it took me a while to recall it. But even though I consider myself a pretty nice guy in this life, 300 years ago, I was an obnoxious SOB. And I know I was in a position of power like Saddam Hussein, and I had this guy murdered because I didn't want him to take over my position. And he came back to get even with me in this life.
Yeah.
Does the opposite hold true, Dr. Shealy? Good deeds in a previous life, do they beget good deeds?
No question about it. Again, you meet people to further, if you will, enhance friendships or clean up old business. So, for instance, my relationship with my wife of 52 years was all bliss. My relationship with my friend, Sergei Sorin, with whom I shared a life 800 years ago, is good. So we have lots of good karma, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and I know Dr. Sergei Sorin, a wonderful, wonderful individual, wonderful doctor, compassionate, caring, deliberate, concerned. I mean, all the good attributes I can think of, I see in Dr. Sergei Sorin, as well as Dr. Shealy.
Great.
Maria, anything else that you'd like to know about past lives?
No, it was that was mostly what I wanted to know, and maybe one more question that might not have to do necessarily with past lives only, but you mentioned that St. Francis, I think in one of your interviews, is reincarnated, and I feel drawn to St. Francis, anything related to him, and I was wondering why is he reincarnated in this time? Does it have to do with nature and people, and was there a need for him to come back?
Well, we all come back.
I'm not sure.
mean, for instance, St. Francis, whom to me is the greatest saint ever, is reincarnated. To me, he should be in some upper level somewhere, but he's back apparently to fulfill some further purpose in life.
Yeah.
Maria, thank you so much for calling. Class, Dr. Norman Shealy is with us, medical doctor, and if you'd like to stay in contact with him, normshealy.com is the website. If you'd like to get the bliss oils or the magnesium lotion, which I use daily, normshealy.com. And if you'd like to call us, 866-582-9933 between the hours of 9 a.m. through 11 a.m. Central Time. Frank in New Hampshire, thank you so much for patiently waiting to be on the air with us. Welcome.
Oh, my pleasure. I wanted to ask Dr. Shealy if he was aware of a study that was done at Keele University at the University of Sussex in the UK in 2015, where they found alarming levels of aluminum in bees, actually enough so that it would cause brain damage in a normal human. Are you aware of that study?
I am not aware of that study. I'm glad that, I thought it was pesticides, but of course, I wonder how many pesticides carry aluminum with them.
Well, that's a good point. And also, I wanted to point out that dementia is now the leading cause of death in the UK. It's the number one killer of people.
Wow.
And I wanted to know because I heard an earlier caller talking about the pH levels in the soil, and I wanted to get your thoughts on what that had to do with geoengineering, because what they're spraying from these planes is changing the pH level of the soils and making it almost impossible to grow outside. And that could explain that, plus the bees with the aluminum, and the whales also have alarming levels of aluminum. There's studies to prove that. So what's your take on geoengineering, Dr. Shealy?
Well, I don't think there's any question. There's so many poisons going on. I don't understand how we have allowed, as a population, our government to do such evil things. By the way, I easily found the aluminum study. I'm glad to have that added to my repertoire, if you will, on aluminum contamination in bees. it's just amazing. And does anyone really know what is in these so-called sprayed things that are going out all over the country and world?
Well, it shows up in the patents that they have on file at the patent office. They actually state what they're spraying, and exact same things that they state that they're spraying are showing up in the soils. We can test them in the soils and find them. We can test them in the wildlife populations, in the fish in the sea. We're getting them. We're getting these materials. We're finding them everywhere.
Frank, I've got a comment. Maybe it's connecting a dot. Maybe it's anecdotal evidence. But here on the farm, we don't apply chemicals to our fields. And we have a stream or a creek that runs 3/4 of a mile through the farm. It starts about 50 feet on the other side of our fence. So the spring is 50 feet off the property line. And I can see crystal clear water coming out of this spring. Then as the creek travels through our farm, bubbles, foam appears. Now, we are not applying detergents. We're not applying anything, nothing that would cause this. And I'm seeing foam increasing at an increasing rate as the stream progresses through the farm, as it travels this 3/4 of a mile. I've traveled up and down our road. It's not just our farm. There's foam coming out of the streams and creeks as the water passes over the rocks and there's turbulence. So we are seeing foam in the streams that we have never seen before. 12 years ago, it didn't happen. Okay, we noticed that the water. One second. We noticed that the water in the Ozarks was different from the water in the creeks and the streams in Virginia. For example, in Virginia there was turbidity. So when there was a rain, the soil would carry. The water would carry soil with it, and it would be, murky and muddy. Some iridescence, oil contamination in the streams in Virginia. But in Missouri, we didn't see that. In the Ozarks, what we saw was crystal clear streams, crystal clear creeks traveling over the rocks. Different from Virginia. Now, and it was remarkable. Now what we're seeing is foam in the water. So that is a new phenomenon. Frank, you have a thought on that?
Yeah, I'm a strong believer in cause and effect, and just using one's common sense and taking in all the data that's all around us all the time. And when you add climate engineering and geoengineering to all of this, it makes perfect sense because they spray heavily during the day to block so-called incoming energy from the sun. And then that same material that they spray during the day falls out to the ground at night. You can see it at night with a powerful light. So that
just
stuff falls on your falls on your field. Yeah, it falls on your fields, and then it rains, and then of course the rain all collects in the streams and then the creeks, and it washes it all into the waterways, and that could explain why you're seeing this increased level of foam.
And when I say foam, I'm not talking about the kind of foam that you might see in a washing machine, a clothes washing machine, where you have these bubbles that are very fragile and you could just touch them and they pop. These bubbles that I'm seeing in the water in the creeks are resilient. They're rubbery. They're strong. They have an outer skin that is way more substantial than if you took one of those. When we were children, we'd take this little wand, we'd stick it in this jar of bubbles, bubble liquid or detergent or soap, whatever it was, and we'd just wave it through the air, and these very fragile bubbles would pop out. The bubbles, the foam that I'm seeing, are way more resilient than that. Way more. They're tackier. They're stronger. They're harder to pop. And you can literally skim them off and have this scum-type foam, which will, when the water evaporates from it, you will see this residual foam that's left. It's a scum. And yes, you're right. We've had instructors say say in public, in meetups, that they were standing under a street light, waiting for the traffic light to change, and so they could walk across the street, and they would be rained on at night by this dust, these particles coming down. It is not exhaust dust. It's particles coming down that are way more substantial in size. You can see it. It literally is dust. Even at the farm at night, you can take a flashlight out, and it looks like you would be choking from inhaling these particles, literally. But I can say this, since the CEO has changed at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, here over the farm, we have fewer and fewer and fewer chemtrails that are visible. Now, maybe we've changed to a less visible type of chemtrail, or there are fewer of them. That is my visual evidence. There are not as many visible chemtrails. I would say 90% fewer than we've seen during the dark days of the Obama regime.
I wish I could say the same for the East Coast. Boy, that sounds like Wonderland to me. We never see the sun here in New Hampshire. And
well, it was pure hell. It was pure hell for a couple years here.
Yeah, well, it's like that here still. Today is another classic day where, at night you'll get a semblance of normalcy with some stars and stuff, but almost like clockwork, every single morning when the sun rises, so do the planes, and they basically follow the sun as it crosses the sky to the point where, today it's a total blanket and you can't even tell where the sun is in the sky. You have no idea. It's hard to tell what time it is.
Is anyone aware of Snowden? Snowden, the great WikiLeaks guy. His comment about the chemtrails. It's on the internet.
Tell us what you found out.
They are actually being pushed by climatologists to, quote, protect the climate of the United States. At least that's the belief behind them. But whatever they are, they're artificial and they're poison.
Yeah, that's the stated goal. And of course, they say they want to dump up to 20 megatons a year in our atmosphere. And I don't think anybody in the listening audience will agree that that is healthy for any of us.
Well, I can't remember anything the government does that I consider healthy, so.
It reminds me of the story that I heard recently about big oil in the early days of automobiles, and how big oil wanted and encouraged the installation of traffic lights, stoplights. And the idea was, if they had stoplights and traffic lights, we would consume more gasoline in these vehicles because they'd be idling and they would have to start up and use more energy than if they just kept moving. Now, I have not verified that, but it kind of seems like that's in concert with the chemtrails. What can we do? What can we do to ensure the use of more of a product that a corporation makes, like aluminum, than chemtrails?
Or like, say, for instance, in the case of the Macondo oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico, they dumped millions of gallons of Corexit in one of the most pristine fishing waterways in the world and destroyed it. And people still
Frank,
eat seafood and like it's like nothing happened.
I don't eat seafood, and I remember Frank and Dr. Shealy, that the day after Fukushima, the global catastrophe, I said to Mrs. Finelli, if you like tuna fish, today's the last day to get it. And if you decide that you'd like to get some tuna fish for the family, you need to buy a lifetime supply right now, because this is it. No more tuna. No more tuna for the Finelli family because of the radiation that I believe would be in the sea. Frank, would you do me a favor, please, and give your telephone number, stay on, give your telephone number to Kyle, our engineer. I'd like to call you after the broadcast. Class Dr. Norman Shealy is with us, medical doctor, normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. Dr. Shealy, to get in touch with you at your clinic, should we want an appointment with you or chat with you or have a telephone conversation, what shall we do? What number shall we call?
417-351-5221. Now, I would like to mention to our listeners, if you're in the greater Springfield area and you have significant symptoms of benign prostatic hypertrophy and enlarged prostate, we are doing a treatment program at no charge. So you could call and get an appointment to have that done. And if you are depressed and not on a drug but want you to pressure treat it safely, we have another freebie going on for treating that. So call 351-5221 and you can get free treatments of benign prostatic hypertrophy or depression.
Wow. Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Shealy, for doing that. Class, one more time. 417-351-5221. If you're in the Springfield, Missouri area, 417-351-5221 during normal business hours, Central Time. Dr. Shealy, thank you for that. Dinah Merrill just passed away a couple days ago, and she was born in 1923. And she passed away from a disease called Lewy body dementia. And we've been talking about dementia, we've talked about Alzheimer's. And what can you tell us about that? It seems like dementia is invading every family.
Well, yeah, Lewy body is a very specific thing. It's different from the usual Alzheimer's, and it's a much more rare condition than Alzheimer's, but it is equally fatal and equally damaging.
And so the symptoms, what happens? Posture, declining posture, memory loss, disorganized thoughts,
all of the above.
Sleep problems, just a general decline in the ability to do everything, right?
Right.
Parkinson's-like symptoms, and no cure, right?
No known cure. Correct.
So diet, exercise, use it or lose it. So don't lose it by making sure you use what you've got. Maybe continue reading, even though maybe it'd be difficult.
Well, mostly they have a lot of visual hallucinations, and they lose the bright-eyed, bushy-tailed alertness and attention. Mm-hmm. And they actually often have Parkinsonian-type tremors and things like that, or rigid muscle, slow movement and treatment. So they have and more evidence of physical brain damage than in Alzheimer's.
Okay. Dr. Shealy, acne. A lot of people who have had acne treat it externally. They apply lotions and potions. Is acne internal?
Well, yes, it is. It is metabolic and hormonal imbalance all the way. Interestingly, it is a tremendous imbalance in the entire endocrine system, but especially the pituitary gonad, that is, testes, ovaries, the system. We've had very good luck in some people using one of my favorite supplements, which is natural progesterone cream.
Okay. And natural progesterone seems to reduce the symptoms of acne?
Exactly. Okay. And a woman, of course, she should take it only from the 10th day of the cycle until the 28th day or the start of the next cycle, not all month. A man can take it all month.
Okay. Dr. Shealy, brain tumors seem to be on the increase. Are you seeing that or reading that as well?
I think it is not just pollution, but in my opinion, cell phone.
Okay. And then what about stress and commuting? Can you imagine the increase of stress being on a long commute every day to the factory or to the job or to the computer keyboard? Would that continue?
Obviously those things are there too, but the problem with cell phone is right up there at your brain.
Yep.
And the incidence of malignant brain tumors has doubled in the last 20 years.
Dr. Shealy, thank you so much for being with us today. I'm Shealy.
Our pleasure as always.
See you next week.